Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Hello, Maverick family and new viewers. Great to have everybody here. Lots of stuff to go over tonight. Axe the tax. The nationwide protest got some legs, got some traction. It happened. People were out in many locations across the country, in Alberta, at the border between Alberta and Saskatchewan, in Edmonton, out in BC, out in the Maritimes, in Quebec. In fact, some people marched on foot, walked on foot, really not marched, they walked on foot from the nation's capital to Quebec, just over the border, just a hop, skip, and a walk over to see some friends in Quebec because apparently they were prevented from making their way over to Ottawa and the nation's capital. Police doing their thing out there, not always keeping people happy, sometimes making people kind of sad. We'll tell you why from a few of the different locations, and we have our own report that I've put together that we'll dig into when we come back after our first break. But I should also preview a few of the other stories that we're going to talk about tonight, specifically more protests in Israel, calling for the resignation of the government there and Benjamin Netenyahu because of the way they're handling this war in Gaza. A lot of people, especially some families of the hostages, not pleased at all with the way the government has been addressing things. A day after the Transgender Day of Visibility, we have some, how shall I put this, revealing things about the way transgendered or LGBTQS plus people from that community or those communities are treated in other parts of the world. Trump, yes, his stock may have gone up in value in Truth Social, or at least his personal value in the company may have gone up with it going public, but the company lost a lot of money. We'll tell you about that too last year. Al Jazeera possibly facing a ban in Israel. We'll tell you why. We'll update the Baltimore Bridge collapse story for you. We will also touch on a Republican congressman who called for Gaza to look like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And we'll tell you what his status is tonight after coming under fire for those shocking comments. So stick with me. I have a lot more coming up right after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And a big thank you to everyone who has supported this channel with donations. Can't thank you enough. It's, difficult to keep up with all of the thank yous and the correspondence with so many people messaging all the time, and just the daily tasks that we have to deal with around here just to keep the program rolling. But I do very much appreciate the support that we've had. And you can support the channel by liking, sharing, subscribing. If you do subscribe over on our YouTube channels, please make sure that you remember to hit that notification bell. And yeah, Rumble is where it's at. We're not censored over there. We haven't had any trouble at all on Rumble. And so we'd really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing on Rumble, because that's the most important platform for us to grow on. We're picking up some steam on a few of the other platforms as well, where the show is uploaded later for archive purposes, and where other locations where people can watch it on places like CloudHub, BitChute. We've got clips rolling over there on TikTok now, and they're getting some attention, so that really helps as well, just to keep things moving along, especially since it seems like we're probably the most banned news outlet in Canada. I think we've been banned so many times off things, and right now we're on a total ban off Facebook, so it's good to get some traction elsewhere. Now today, what else got traction is this Axe the Tax protest. It wasn't clear how big this thing was going to be, and in some places it was fairly large, and in other places maybe a little bit smaller. Out in the Maritimes we saw smaller crowds. Out in Alberta we saw some pretty big crowds, and we saw some pretty decent attendance in the nation's capital. Now here where I'm at in southern Ontario, there were demonstrations in places like Windsor, and right here I went out and met some of the protesters on an overpass. I did run some of that stuff earlier in the day. I have this report for you now. And, around here, there really weren't any problems with police or any traffic disruptions or anything like that. Smaller community here, but they made quite a splash out on Highway 401, about 1 hour away from the Windsor-Detroit border, on the Chatham-Kent Ontario 401 overpass. Here's our report. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
So, what do you think of the turnout?
Probably about 5 have already left, but it's going good.
Good.
We got to get out here.
Yeah. I hear the horns are honking.
They have been honking. We've been
Yeah.
getting a good response. We just need more people.
Yeah.
But I think they're spread out all over. But we had them in from Tilbury and Windsor.
Okay.
So we're doing what we can.
Well, I'm going to walk around and talk to some people. Show me your sign. There you go. Howdy.
Howdy, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm familiar with your face from your website.
Yeah. Rick Walker. Right.
So have you been to other overpasses? Like
I was down there. There's nobody down there
Yeah.
at all. So
Am I on you?
I found you.
That's good. We're just kind of going, we need more people.
Yeah, I know. It's Monday though, right?
But for some, it's a holiday Monday. And their kids aren't in school, and the kids should be here. Like, I'm not talking little kids, but the ones that should be.
Well, you got me. I'm a big
Are
kid.
you a big kid?
Yeah.
Yes. Join the crowd.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank
Good.
you.
Good.
How are
Good.
you?
I'm okay. So, what do you think of what's going on today? You happy with it?
Well, I think we need more people out here. I wish we were full. This whole thing was
Yeah.
full. It'd be nice.
Yeah. And tell me what you're upset about with regard to the tax. How's it going to affect you?
I don't want to see the prices of food and everything go up.
Yeah.
I'm just sick of it.
Yeah, inflation.
Inflation, yeah.
Yeah, it's a problem for everybody for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
How are you guys doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, good. Are you happy with the turnout?
Yeah, it's been a rotating door. There's been a bunch of people come and go.
Yeah, yeah. So, what do you think the carbon tax?
The carbon
What
tax.
do you think? Do you think it's? Do you
what-
mind paying
what do you
extra
think,
for your
Rick?
gas,
I,
for your
I-
groceries,
no,
furniture?
man. I think it's crazy. It's
Yeah,
it's inflation's out of control.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at in real terms like 15-20% a year inflation.
yeah.
So that's a big chunk out of anybody's
Oh, it is, yeah.
income, especially if you're on a retirement, right?
Yeah.
Fixed income.
Yeah,
That's really rough.
Yeah.
So personally, I think it's crazy. I think he's
Fixed income people, to my knowledge, aren't getting an increase in their fixed income.
yeah.
So
That's right.
it's got to be pinching them worse than anybody.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's,
And even the middle class. I mean, if you have a mortgage going, this is going to be tough.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I see, different parts across the country today. Larger crowds here, smaller ones over there. It just depends on what the turnout is like. But overall, do you think there's enough determination to send a message to Ottawa?
I think he's already got the message. 80% of Canadians are against the carbon tax. He's
Yeah.
got the message, but he can't call an election.
Right.
Definitely.
He's
right?
gonna lose.
He's going to lose.
He doesn't care about the message. The message doesn't matter to him. The agenda is greater than him. He's just a puppet doing what he's told. Not that he's not for it, but he's being handled and he's doing what he's told because he knows his future and he wants the future to be there for him with that group.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, I don't know what else to say. I just disappointed in the fact that there's not more people today. Disappointed in the people who drive underneath the bridge and have the "what are you doing" look on their face.
Well, I hear a lot of horns honking too.
Yeah,
though.
but we get a few of the other end of the spectrum, and that I don't mind either because then I know where they stand.
Yeah.
It's the ones in the middle who pretend or don't know what's going on.
A lot of people don't understand or don't
Yeah,
know.
they don't understand. You're right. That's probably the word for it.
Yep. And so what do you think of Polyev? Like, he actually is this is his slogan, right? Axe the tax.
Of course.
So do you think he's going to get in there and make a real difference? Do you trust him?
Oh yeah. He's getting all the young voters now too. All the young voters used to traditionally vote Liberal, but they're all on his side now. They are pissed right
Can't
now.
buy a house.
Yeah.
You can't
They can't buy a house.
Yeah.
Yep.
My daughter said 2 weeks ago, "How am I ever going to buy a house?"
Yeah. I don't know. It's because they've more than doubled.
Especially in Ontario, where the realty prices are higher than any other province.
Yeah.
So I mean, buying a house in Ontario for a young person is near impossible.
Yeah. It is insane.
Yes.
I don't know.
And now with the interest rate gone up, and anybody who is afraid of that is still afraid it's going to go to 10%.
Yeah.
So they're not going to take a mortgage even at 5%, which, over the past is not that high. But I mean, that's 5 prime. They're paying 8 or more already.
Yeah.
So you can't sustain over 10% interest on mortgage. You'll never pay it off.
Yes.
At today's housing prices.
Right.
Sure, my parents bought a house for $35,000 at 10%. Well, that was different. Although our parents didn't make that much money.
Yeah.
So it was all relative.
Yeah. Wages are going to have to go way up to compensate, and it's just
They
a
can't.
vicious cycle, right?
That's right.
You can't.
Yeah.
Just like you said, vicious cycle will be created.
Yep.
Same with the minimum wage. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I just know that people need to make a stand and show their support either way. Take your pick.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got my views on it. I think they need to grow the economy to grow our way out of it, but that means more productivity.
We're one of the poorest productivity countries on the planet.
Right. I mean, so you got to make major
make nothing.
changes. Major changes.
Thanks to Trudeau, he's got so much red tape and regulations. When anyone wants to invest in this country, they turn around and hijack it.
Yeah.
There's too much red tape. Open up a mine? No way. You can't do it.
Right.
Yeah. Open up business? No. It takes years and years to get over all the regulations.
Very true.
Yeah. And people just invest in the U.S. instead.
Yes.
And that's what's happening.
Yeah. And that goes for houses too, right? They have so many regulations and permits that they have to get, and then people stand in the way of development, and there's all kinds of problems. So,
Yeah.
You're absolutely
I'm
right.
done.
I'm gonna go down and talk to these guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You go ahead.
Hey, how you doing? Good. Howdy.
How are you?
Good. So, how's the carbon tax going to affect you?
Well, in my opinion, I pay enough taxes already, okay? Instead of the massive corruption that's going on in our government, like the Arrive scam, $80,000 app going to $60 million and they can't find the money, that's just the tip of the iceberg of the corruption. So take all the corruption money, all the money we're sending to Ukraine, and I'm not saying we shouldn't help Ukraine, I'm just saying all the money we send to all the other countries around the world could be used for their climate agenda instead of taxing us again. Look at your paychecks and see how much money goes to you and how much goes to the government.
Yeah.
Okay? Look at the hydro. Your taxes, they put tax on top of a tax, GST on top of the carbon tax. That's wrong. It's just we're taxed enough. Take the tax money that you're already getting from us, which is enough, and use it properly instead of mismanagement and corruption. Like mismanagement, putting tampons in men's room. Well, maybe we should put the morning after pill in men's room, right? But that's how much sense it to be politically correct. Now that contraceptives are going to be covered, we should put the morning after pill in men's room. Exactly. It leaves you speechless.
I know. Things don't
So
make any
today
sense
we're here
anymore.
to ask the tax. Pierre Poilievre called me here. He's my leader. Okay, Pierre Poilievre. Okay, and government has to change, not just from liberal to conservative, but the whole system has to change. We need an independent police force that can investigate the corruption, unredacted. Okay, you can't have what's going on. Okay, maybe a Crime Stoppers for government. So any government employee that outs corruption would be get a big reward, just like Crime Stoppers for the government. And that makes sense. And if an MP doesn't answer a question in question period, fine them. You don't answer a question with a question. It's question period. Answer the damn question. Okay. The whole government system has to change. How senators are elected, we should have elected senators, not appointed senators, appointed judges, liberal, like whoever. It doesn't matter if it's liberal or conservative. There's a monster. It has two heads. Right now, the liberal head is sticking up. Conservative head is down here. It's always been that way. I'm 62 years old. It's always been that way. I have never been politically active until Trudeau called me names. Okay, and that's it. And now, tampons in men's rooms. I've been out here since mid-February by myself, a couple of days a week, a couple hours at a time. I have health problems, so it's hard for me to do, but I do it. And the first and third Sunday of every month, I have a small group coming up. I cannot believe this bridge isn't full. A million honks. This bridge, every bridge across Canada should be full. I know there's a Trans-Canada Highway shut down in Alberta, other things going on. Tomorrow I plan on going to the MP's office in Windsor, NDP and Liberal. They're the ones that are keeping this tax. You pay enough tax already. Use that money wisely and do your job. And a pay raise. A pay raise, the same day they do this to us, they get a $10,000 bonus pay raise.
Yeah.
And this is the third one in 2 years. Polyev disappointed me. He should have called for a freeze on pay raises for MPs. And he still should call. I'm calling him out right now to call for a freeze on pay raise for MPs. They don't deserve it. Half of them deserve to be fired. World Economic Forum is another issue. Like, Christian Freeland should not be in the World Economic Forum board and running Canada.
Yeah.
That's a conflict of interest. There's so many issues. Like, the list is this long. The SNC Lavalin, the We Charity scandal. How much is enough? How much is enough? Canada, come on, wake up. That's really all I gotta say.
Yeah. What's your name?
I mean, like Randy Moody.
Right. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
Police have visited me out here today will be 8 times now. A few times they've got calls, someone suspicious on the bridge. They've come here and I've told them that I'm here peacefully protesting. I'm not impeding traffic. They tell me to have a nice day and I tell them to have a nice day. OPP even offered to buy me coffee. People have tried to buy me food, give me money. I told them pay it forward, give it to one of those tent cities that Trudeau created.
Yeah. So you haven't had any trouble with police?
No, they've all told me to have a nice day. Like I said, we're not doing anything illegal. We are peacefully protesting, which is our right.
Right.
Okay. And what do you call it? Not our Constitution, but our
Bill of Rights or the Charter of
Rights and Freedoms.
Yeah, Charter, yeah.
Says that we are guaranteed good governance, and we do not have good governance. So for that reason, there should be an election now, not a year from now. And then another issue, the MPs, changing the election so 80 MPs can get their pensions.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something. If I'm 2 days short for EI, I'm not getting EI. Okay, and that's the system. That's the way it works. If you're not elected on time when the election is supposed to be, then you don't get your pension. And there's 80 of them that he's changing the election so that they can get their pensions. That's wrong, and it just goes on and on.
Yeah.
On.
Mean, he constitutionally has to have election sometime in 2025. So.
Well, it says it's supposed to be the 21st or something, and they're delaying it a week so that these 80 MPs can get their pension. They're 3 days short. So, like I said, if I'm 3 days short of my EI, I'm not getting it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank
it's
you.
Just very frustrating.
Thank you very much for talking to me. I appreciate
All right,
it.
no problem.
All right. How you doing? Good. So, how's the carbon tax going to affect you?
I'm a bit camera shy, but I'm not one to say much. All I know is we're paying too many taxes as is already. So.
Yeah.
And when they're saying, well, if we don't, how do I want to put this? I mean, we're paying thousands of dollars in income or in carbon tax, but then they're like, well, we're going to give you $100 back. Well, that doesn't make up for it. So.
It doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't make sense at all. Getting a lot of horns honking support?
There's quite a bit. I haven't been out in a while. Today's my first time being out again, so not in the best shape to be out here.
I see that. What'd you do to yourself?
Hunting deer with a motorcycle. Broke my legs. I broke my both bones in this one leg. So.
Well, I'm glad you're on the mend.
Yeah,
thanks, guys. Okay, thank you. Have a good one. See you. You too. See ya.
Yep, you have a good day. Thank you.
There you have it. That was what was going on around here locally. I am going to take a very brief break, and then we're going to dig into what was going on around the rest of Canada today. Stay with me.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So there were protests all across the country. Highway 1, I believe, in Alberta. Big protests down there. Big turnout right at the Alberta-Saskatchewan border. There was quite a bit of activity. Also, I saw that in some places people did park along the side of a highway or highways, and then what police did, though, is they blocked off the road, the highway, so that traffic couldn't get down to where they were. Presumably, they would say for safety reasons. But then because the traffic was blocked, nobody could get through to join the protest. And even though one lane was left open, there was nobody coming by to see the protest because they diverted the traffic the way they would for an accident. So everybody was going around the protest and out on the other side. So the people were sitting there protesting with nobody seeing them. They were not happy. In Ottawa, police, I guess, in Quebec, were preventing people from crossing over to get into Ottawa. So here's Chris Dacey explaining how people in Ottawa responded.
Back, we went on foot over the interprovincial bridge, and we have found some tractors and trucks.
So they went to Quebec instead on foot.
Oh yeah!
Our number's recorded, Casey.
So the authorities in Quebec seem to think it's acceptable to block Canadians from traveling in their country, blocking people from getting into downtown Ottawa. We have walked to come and greet them.
You definitely got to check out Chris Dacey's work. I'm sure that most of you are already familiar with what he does. Always on the scene. Out there at a lot of these protests. Here's another clip from Chris Dacey where people are holding hands, forming a human chain in solidarity.
Come on, to do extra tax. Support. Extra support. Extra support.
You can hear it from the Portage Bridge between Ontario and Quebec. Axe the tax.
And you know, Pierre Poilievre, in a very real way, has sort of eaten the PPC's lunch, the People's Party of Canada. Somehow he's managed to take this main plank from his campaign platform heading into this next federal election, which is axe the tax or spike the hike. Either way, it's a protest against the carbon tax. He's vowing to get rid of it, and he has managed to get all these freedom fighters out and on side with him protesting using his campaign slogan, axe the tax. A brilliant piece of political strategy. And he's done that with, well, I would say, I don't know how he's done it. It's whatever it is, however he did this, I can only say it's brilliant. Maybe it's just organic. Maybe it just happened on its own because people are so fed up with, the inflation that we're experiencing. But here's Poilievre today in a news conference.
C'est ça le gros bon sens. C'est exactement ce que nous allons livrer.
This is out in British Columbia.
Thank you very much for being here today, fellow Canadians. It is an honor to address the great people of Vancouver Island. Thank you for making your way out today. An honor to have this spontaneous gathering with us even before our rally starts. I wish it were on better occasion, but look behind you there. That right there is Justin Trudeau and the NDP's cruel April Fool's Day joke on Canadians. It is a joke without laughter. It is a joke that brings tears to the eyes of most Canadians, because after 8 years of Trudeau and his coalition with the NDP, everything costs more. 2 million Canadians line up at food banks because they can't afford food. 1/3 of food-related food-related charities are turning Canadians away because they've run out of food. In Montreal, a couple of weeks back, there was a small riot after the food ran out and the police had to be called because there were too many hungry people on the streets clamoring for something to eat. In St. John's, Newfoundland, there are 28 dead bodies left in refrigerators outside of a hospital because families could not afford a funeral or cremation. Can you imagine that? Leaving your aunt, your father, your sister, your brother in a freezer next to a dumpster at a hospital because you cannot afford to give them a dignified goodbye. These are the kinds of stories that we see after 8 years of Trudeau. Homeless encampments are now common in almost every community in the country. We all remember the downtown east side of Vancouver. Well, Justin Trudeau and the NDP have taken that model nationwide. They've doubled housing costs with rent, mortgage payments, and down payments now costing twice what they did 8 years ago when Trudeau promised to lower them. Then we have the crime because of catch and release, decriminalization of drugs, and wasted money pursuing a ban on hunters and sport shooters. We have crime and chaos everywhere in our streets. Violent crime up 40%. Shootings up over 100%. 40,000 people have died of drug overdoses as the Prime Minister floods our streets with tax-funded opioids. And his solution to all this misery is today to hike the carbon tax by 23%. This is not just a tax at the pump. It's a tax on your heat, a tax on your food, because if you tax the farmer who grows the food and the trucker who ships the food, you tax all who buy the food. It is a tax that will cost the majority of families in every single province more than they get back. In Alberta, the average family will pay $900 more this year than they get back in rebates. In Saskatchewan, $525 more than they get back in rebates. In Manitoba, $502 more. In Ontario, $627 more. In Nova Scotia, $537 more. In Prince Edward Island, $550 more. And in Newfoundland and Labrador, $377 more in tax costs than you get back in rebates. And in BC, it's worst of all. Here, the NDP government is expected to collect $9 billion more in carbon taxes carbon taxes and give back $3.5 billion in credits. So you can tell there's a big difference between 9 and 3.5. That's $5.5 billion in net taxes out of the pockets of British Columbians. It is a combined tax imposed by Trudeau in Ottawa, but happily administered by the NDP government of David Eby here in British Columbia. My friends, the good news is life was not like this before Trudeau, and it won't be like this after he's gone. There will be a carbon tax election with a very clear choice between Trudeau, a costly coalition of Trudeau and the NDP, who tax your food, punish your work, take your money, double your housing costs, and unleash crime and chaos in your community, or common sense conservatives, who axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Common sense conservatives will axe the tax to bring down costs on our farmers, on our small businesses, on building materials. We will cap government spending and cut waste to balance the budget so we can bring down inflation and interest rates, and your dollar will carry its purchasing power forward into the future. Speaking of powerful paychecks, we'll remove government gatekeepers to develop our resources again. Our fisheries, our forestry, our farmers, our factories will come roaring back to life, producing more of the goods that money buys rather than just producing money. We're going to bring home the production to Canada. We're going to incentivize our municipalities to speed up and lower the cost of building permits. We'll require they permit 15% more housing completions per year as a condition of getting federal funds so that they get out of the way and let builders build. We'll sell off 6,000 federal buildings, thousands of acres of federal land to build. We'll back up the trades so we have more builders to do the work. We need more boots and not more suits. And we will ensure these homes are in safe neighborhoods, with jail and not bail for repeat violent offenders, with treatment, not more decriminalized and subsidized drugs, so that we can rehabilitate our loved ones and bring them home drug-free. We will stop the attack on law-abiding, lawful hunters and sport shooters. We know that our hunters are not the problem. It is the criminals who bring the guns over the border illegally. We'll put the money into reinforcing our ports, and our borders so that we keep the illegal drugs and guns out of our country, and we bring home safety to all Canadians. This is the hopeful, bright, and optimistic future that awaits with a common sense conservative government that will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Let's bring it home. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll now have time for a few questions from the floor.
Hi there.
We'll stick with it.
And IMO News now. If your party removes the carbon tax, what would that mean for provinces like BC who have implemented their own?
It will give the British Columbia government the authority to do the same. Right now, Justin Trudeau has basically threatened BC. He said either BC will bring in its own carbon tax, or if it doesn't, the Trudeau government will force one from Ottawa. By removing that threat, British Columbians can elect a common sense provincial government that can axe the tax here in BC. The alternative is what Trudeau and the NDP are both proposing now, which is that they will quadruple the tax. They want to raise it. This is just the beginning. They want to quadruple the tax up to 61 cents a liter. So you've got another 43 cents of carbon tax hikes coming if Trudeau is reelected in his coalition with the NDP. What I'm saying is a common sense conservative government will axe the federal tax that will free British Columbians to elect a provincial government that will do the same.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Claire Palmer, CBC News. You spoke quite a bit about food insecurity, and I was wondering if you would support a national food school program, or school food program, and why or why not.
Well, after 8 years of Trudeau, 1 in 4 school children is going without enough food. That's a major failure for Justin Trudeau. This is after 8 years of promising that he'd help the middle class. Well, now, by his own admission, 1 in 4 kids don't get enough food. I find it ironic that he's promising a federal food bureaucracy in Ottawa the same day as he raises taxes on food. His carbon tax on the farmer who grows the food and the trucker who ships the food is a tax on the single mom who can't afford to buy the food. I'm reminded that he brought in an affordable housing program. And what did that do? It doubled the cost of housing. So my common sense plan is to axe the carbon tax to lower the cost of food for everyone so that we can reverse the malnutrition that Justin Trudeau's 8 years have caused. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Drea Humphrey with Rebel News. You've made it very clear if you form government, you will axe the carbon tax. But will you also withdraw us from the underlying United Nations Paris Accord agreement, which allows us to be unfairly taxed on our emissions while giving China a pass?
Well, we will not be unfairly taxed on our emissions, and I will not give China or any other country a pass. We will reduce emissions and costs, but our approach is completely different than Trudeau's. His approach is taxes, mine is technology. His approach is to raise the cost of traditional energy that we still need. My approach is to lower the cost of alternatives. His approach is to put up stop signs in front of our workers. My approach is to green light green projects. We need a massive abundance of clean, green, emissions-free energy by giving fast permits and responsible permits for hydro dams, nuclear power, carbon capture and storage, offshore tidal wave power. These are the kinds of power sources that I will bring home by granting quick but responsible approval so that they can go ahead. That will mean abundant, affordable, clean energy that brings down emissions and the cost of living. Trudeau wants to drive production to dirty dictatorships. I want to bring it home, powerful paychecks for our people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Kendall Hansen from Czech News. Nice to see you in Nanaimo again. Just wondering, in terms of the Conservative plan, how would you reduce greenhouse gases? I know you touched on that a little bit, but we haven't really heard a fleshed out plan from the Conservatives on how you're going to reduce greenhouse gases.
Again, our approach is to lower the cost of alternatives rather than raising the cost of traditional energy we still need. That means quickly approving hydroelectric dams in, for example, Quebec, which needs to double its output of hydroelectricity over the next several decades in order to meet the demand for emissions-free energy. We need to green light tidal wave power off the East Coast, the kind that Trudeau blocked with years of bureaucracy. We need to speed up small modular nuclear reactors that will supply clean, green, emissions-free electricity onto the grid. We need to support carbon capture and storage that will allow industry to put emissions back underground where it came from. In other words, where Trudeau proposes taxes, I propose technology. Where he proposes to raise the cost of traditional energy we still need, I propose to lower the cost of alternatives. Where he wants to drive our jobs to dirty dictatorships, I want to bring home powerful paychecks for our people. Thank you.
Thank you. This will be the final question. Jonathan Bartlett from Global News. Reporters at an anti-carbon tax rally in Hope, BC this morning were harassed and yelled at for being there. How concerning is that for you?
I didn't witness that, so I can't comment on something I haven't seen. But all I can say is that we need to unify our country around an optimistic vision to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Thank you very much. guys.
And there you go. So, that's Polyev with his Axe the Tax, Spike the Hike campaign. And I've got other audio playing in my ear, so I'm going to take a break while I get that out of my head so I can concentrate again. Be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
So as I said, I don't know how Pierre Poilievre has managed to win over all of, well, I don't know if all of the freedom fighters are supporting him, but it seems like he's picked up the bulk of them, at least for this protest. Will that translate into enhanced support during the next election? If so, it will come clearly at the expense of the People's Party of Canada. You know how he didn't do it, though? I'm certain he didn't do it with the mainstream media, because people within the freedom community do not trust the MSM very much. Apparent today, as mainstream media showed up in various locations to cover this nationwide Axe the Tax protest. This is the CBC showing up at one of the locations, and they were not well received.
How do you work for them? Seriously, how do you work for them? It's like WEF all the way. Do you know who they are? Do you know? Do you know what Trudeau's doing? He's killing everybody, man, with the facts and everything. Like, you support that. How can you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night? You're reporting this. They're funding you to report whatever he wants to say. And how can you do that? How can you do that to Canadians? You're trading. You're traitors like hell. How can you do that? Shame on you. Amen, sister. Shame. How do you...
So they left. I guess they probably shot some B-roll, that's video, and then they left. No interviews. I don't think they got any interviews. And this is, I'm sure that a lot of you are still familiar with Rachel Emmanuel, who has been on this program a few times. Great reporter. Definitely got to, check out her work. She is out in Alberta and has, I believe, the #1 podcast now in that province. She was out on the road today, shooting some video, and captured another interaction, we'll call it, between mainstream media, City News, CBC, and freedom fighters on the highway. Here's how that went. Not well again.
Put more money back into people's pockets. You might get that on TV, though. That's the thing. Look, the easiest way to do this, watch the show tonight. If I change your words in any way, then you'll know that there is some kind of high.
Yeah, but in a way, like, you guys already know, though. You guys already know this is all across Canada.
Oh, I know, absolutely. But that's why
you know, and it's kind of obvious what it's about. And you guys would already have access to all the websites anyway.
The problem is, our job is when you have that clip on TV, right? That's it. It's just to say. I mean, absolutely. That's exactly. So not CTV, not Global, not CBC, City.
Let me tell you, I'm going to show you something.
I mean, put more money back. You might get that on TV.
So he was looking for a clip, a soundbite. Doesn't look like he got one. No trust. no trust left. People don't trust the mainstream media. They've blown it. That's why I keep telling people. That's why I always say, do not lie, especially if you're in the media. You need to protect your reputation, man. You have to have that integrity. If you do not, if you lie and you get caught lying, and the mainstream media did, then people don't trust anything you say after that, even if you're telling the truth. And I'll tell you, like, I go through news of all kinds all the time, and there's some valid reporting still out there, but how do you know if you can trust it when they've been caught in a lie? But that goes for the independent media too, frankly. You should be scrutinizing everything. Just because the MSM sometimes has been caught lying, and a lot during the pandemic, it doesn't mean necessarily that the other side is automatically just telling you the truth either. So be skeptical of all of it. As much as Pierre Poilievre has gained some political ground with today's Axe the Tax protest across the country, and I would say fairly successful protest at that nationwide, the Liberals are coming for him. They're trying to chip away at that huge lead that he has. Here's just a look at the way that they're trying to attack him. Pierre Poilievre wants to cut your carbon rebate, they're saying. This from the Liberal Party account on X. It says, taking money away from 8 out of 10 Canadians, but his climate denial would cost you more than your rebates. It would stop Canada's progress in fighting climate change. Let's stop him. And there's the graphic that they're using with that. It looks like it's probably going to be used for a billboard, if it isn't already. It's from the Stop Pierre Poilievre from Cutting the Canada Carbon Rebate Liberal Action campaign. And with all of that going on, Trudeau was out announcing a new school food program today. And while there, he was also addressing some of these other issues that he's being attacked on. Among them, the carbon tax. We'll pick up his news conference here. And here we go.
On the federal carbon tax, it's not just the Conservatives who are calling for a pause. Premier Furey in Newfoundland has asked for a pause again today and asked for an emergency meeting to discuss alternatives to carbon tax. Will you hold such a meeting? And are you concerned the consensus you built on the carbon tax is falling apart?
First of all, let's be clear about what's happening right now. The price on pollution is increasing along with the Canada Carbon Rebate. We are effective in putting a price on pollution that is driving down emissions and leading the way not just in protecting the environment for the future, but on sparking the kinds of innovation and upgrades that companies and individuals are doing to their homes, to their businesses, so that we can be both better for the environment and more competitive. This is the kind of leadership that Canada is showing and has shown over the past 8 years as people around the world look to our success at transforming our economy to be less carbon emitting. We have a big plan on fighting climate change, but the price on pollution is a full third of that plan that makes a huge impact. But at the same time, we know that if we're putting a price on pollution, the cost cannot land on ordinary families across the country, which is why we're delivering a Canada Carbon Rebate that puts more money back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families across the country in regions where the federal backstop applies to help with affordability. So we're both fighting climate change in one of the most efficient ways possible and putting more money back in people's pockets with checks that arrive 4 times a year. The next Canada Carbon Rebate check is arriving on April 15th. So it's money in people's pockets while we continue stepping up in the fight against climate change. That's what we're doing. Now, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are actually getting in the way of delivering the doubling of the rural top-up across the country. We committed to double the rural top-up for the Canada Carbon Rebate from 10 to 20%, but that's being blocked by the Conservatives, who are preventing money from getting in the pockets of Canadians right across the country who need that money, with the cost of groceries, with the cost of living going up right across the board. So anything that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are talking about, worried about affordability or worried about climate change, is simply false, because they're blocking climate action and they're blocking money in people's pockets. And from the very beginning, we said that this is a federal backstop. We need the entire country to reach a similar level of stringency, of ambition in fighting against climate change, both because we need everyone to do their part, but also because it has to be fair right across the country. It wouldn't be fair for one region to have to pay more than a different region, which is why we brought in a federal backstop. A number of provinces said, no, we're going to do our own system or keep up with our own system. British Columbia, Quebec, even the Northwest Territories have their own approach to pricing pollution, which is just fine. Every other province has the opportunity, if they want, to create a system that is equivalent to what BC, what Quebec, and what the federal backstop is. Every province has had many opportunities to do that, and we're always open to work with them on a way that will put a price on pollution, will support families, but mostly will reach the same level of ambition of everywhere else across the country. So all those premiers that are busy complaining about the price on pollution, but not putting forward a concrete alternative that they think would be better for their communities, are just playing politics. Every province has the opportunity to put forward its own plan, as long as they are fighting climate change to the same level that we're asking all other Canadians to do. That's what a federal backstop is. But we're not seeing detailed plans from the premiers on this. They'd much rather try to complain about it and make political hay out of this. But Canadians know we need to fight climate change, and we need to be supporting people with more money in their pockets. That's what the federal backstop does. That's what the Canada Carbon Rebate that's landing in people's bank accounts as of April 15th is going to help them with. And that's a Canada Carbon Rebate, money in people's pockets, that Conservative politicians want to take away.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi there, Prime Minister. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Wyatt.
I'm going to switch gears for a moment here. The pro-Palestinian protests across the country have been prompting quite a bit of discussion, I think it's fair to say. You have some members of your caucus, like Anthony Housefather, who said he's both thinking about it and reflecting on his future within the party. But then at the other end of that, you also have a very large many members, who are openly calling for a ceasefire. So I guess how do you, as Prime Minister, kind of balance such a polarizing issue, not just within your caucus, but within the country?
Well, I think you struck it exactly right. These are really difficult times and really difficult moments right across the country, where people have feelings of anger, feelings of grief, feelings of fear and concern, and very difficult conversations happening in communities across the country. I think it's sort of important that our political parties can actually be a reflection of the kinds of conversations going on in communities across the country. And it is a very good thing that we have both significant number of Jewish MPs and a significant number of Muslim MPs in our political party, because that allows us to have conversations that are the reflection of the kinds of conversations going on out there across the country. It is an incredibly difficult time. People are filled with senses of grief, of powerlessness, of anger, of frustration, and of course, people are allowed to, and we will always defend their rights to go out and express themselves and share their concerns and their anguish with their fellow citizens. It's an important right that all Canadians have. And we're going to continue to make sure we're having those conversations in a way that eventually brings people back together. Because in all this, sometimes we're forgetting a little bit that our neighbors are also our fellow Canadians. And someone on the other side of the perspective is also hurting and grieving, and being able to pull people together and try and find solutions, not just for Canada, but for the world, is what this party and indeed this country is all about.
And then just kind of following up on that, obviously there were protests in Toronto over the weekend where there were a number of arrests made. Despite policing obviously being a provincial jurisdiction, a lot of people still turning to you for your perspective. I guess what steps will your government take, perhaps working with the provinces, to both balance the obligations of law enforcement with Canadians' rights to peacefully assemble and free speech?
Well, first of all, it is a fundamental right that people are able to protest freely in this country. It is really, really important in our democracy and in democracies around the world that people have that ability to mobilize, go out and express their concerns for policies here at home or things happening overseas. That's something that this government will always defend. And that protest needs to be done peacefully in a way that doesn't endanger other people's lives. We expect police to both obey the laws and enforce the laws. And that's something that I think is necessary. Just waving a Palestinian flag is not in itself something that is unacceptable or anti-Semitic. People are allowed to express their concerns on every side of the event. It's when you start making people feel unsafe in their neighborhoods, in their schools, in their communities, that we fall into things where police do need to lean in and make sure that everyone is safe and feels safe. But that is a balance that is ongoing every single day by police forces across the country. And as a federal government, we expect people to obey the law. We expect the police to obey the law, but we also expect the police to enforce the law.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister. Barbara with Queen's Park Briefing. On today's announcement, could you just be more specific on how exactly...
Okay. So we've covered the ground we need to cover there. It's the uneven treatment, or even the perceived uneven treatment of one type of protest versus another type of protest. One type of protester versus another type of protester. That's what I think has people mostly upset. So you see that some of the protesters today were prevented from moving freely and getting into areas where the protests were supposed to be happening. These are the things that upset people. It's the way that the Freedom Convoy was treated versus the way we've seen pro-Palestinian protesters treated in the streets up until maybe the weekend, this past weekend, where we did see some arrests because of some aggressive behavior by some. And you know what's going on in the streets. So that's what has people bent out of shape for the most part. Now I just want to make sure we've covered off everything here with regard to the Axe the Tax protest. I think that we pretty much have. So let's take another little break here, and when we come back, we'll move on to other news of the day. I think we've done it justice. Be right back.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Fighting the Great Reset. By leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
Okay, so let's just update the story on that ship that hit the bridge, the Dolly, that hit the bridge in Baltimore, the Key Bridge. If you missed it, this is what it looked like. This is the Dolly, big cargo ship. The bridge built in the 1970s when ships were considerably smaller. In fact, I would say that ship there probably 30 times the size of the average ship that was sailing through there back in the 1970s. So this bridge, about half a century old. Most bridges have a lifespan of between 50 and 100 years, depending on how they're constructed and maintained. Now, I don't think that it was due for replacement, so still was supposed to have some life left in it. But when this support beam was struck by this ship that lost power, for some inexplicable reason, still to be determined, the entire thing collapses because of the way it's constructed. Each of those support beams transferring the weight to the pillars. Take out the pillar, and it's almost like a house of cards that goes down because of the way those kinds of bridges are constructed. Now, I know I was also doing some research and found that in some cases bridges like this are being fortified with protective barriers around the pillars that support the bridges, because the ships are so much larger today compared to the way they used to be. But this particular bridge did not have that. And there it goes. So what they're doing now is they are working still to clear debris and clear a channel around the debris and around what's going to be left there, so that they can start to get some ships out of port. So that's the first order of business for them. The investigation into the cause continues, and I've heard all kinds of speculation, theories, and even conspiracies. Some of them already have been proven wrong. Other ones maybe still up in the air. We did talk about concerns within the shipping industry, reports and studies about cybersecurity. I have seen some indications saying that it's unlikely that it was a cyber attack of some kind that resulted in this ship having its engines shut down, and yet there is still some speculation out there that that might be the cause. All I can say is I'm going to sit back and wait for more facts to learn what might have happened here before drawing any conclusions one way or another. Okay, there goes Trudeau. So, Donald Trump says he watches videos out of Gaza every night. Reports coming out today saying that even though Trump doesn't talk about what's going on in Gaza very much, he's very in tune with it and has indicated that he does watch video out of there on a daily basis to stay on top of what is going on. And he has actually come out with some criticisms of the way the situation in Gaza is being handled by Israel, recognizing, of course, that it's a public relations disaster, an information warfare disaster for Israel, to be sure. And that is translating into serious problems for Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel, because protests in the streets calling for the resignation of the government and Netanyahu himself, which began yesterday, continue to gain today. Thousands and thousands of people in the streets protesting. And you're still seeing a lot of people in the streets in Toronto protesting as well. And that is also what Justin Trudeau was asked about in that news conference. More protests even today. Counter-protests to the Axe the Tax protest. Some of it pretty distasteful. This is pro-Palestinian protest from the weekend. So, not an easy job being a cop, man, with all that pushing and shoving, and oh boy, not an easy job being a protester either. It's getting dangerous out there, I would say. Very dangerous indeed. So what's going on in Gaza right now? Well, we know, this seems to be spreading beyond Gaza. Tehran has blamed Israel now for an airstrike that killed a senior Iranian military commander. In fact, they're saying, I believe now, 2 military commanders, Iranian commanders, have been killed by Israel near the Iranian embassy in Syria. Israeli officials, as far as I know, the information we have so far is that they've not commented specifically on this incident. Tensions are high, to say the least. The Israeli military has also withdrawn from Gaza's main hospital now after a 2-week raid there. The Israel Defense Forces said its troops and tanks have now withdrawn from Al-Shifa. Hundreds of Hamas fighters were killed in that confrontation. Weapons were also seized, along with intelligence documents. The World Health Organization says 21 patients died during that operation. There were soldiers there, and the result was that the medical complex was left in ruins, and those sheltering at the site are in terrible conditions. Tens of thousands of Israelis marched against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu last night, filling the streets. I don't know how many. It was another massive protest. The crowds gathered in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv. Included in that crowd were some of the families of Israeli hostages that remain in captivity. Senior Israeli and American officials took part in a virtual meeting today to discuss alternatives to a ground assault in Gaza's southernmost city of Rafah. That's a sore point, an obstacle between the United States and Israel, a key issue. And even though we've seen that ceasefire resolution from the United Nations, honestly, I don't think it's had any impact at all. I kind of doubt that it will, as much as the Palestinian delegation at the UN would like us all to adopt a position which says that resolution is binding. The truth of the matter is it is not. And as a result, the fighting continues. Window dressing, I guess, is the main way to describe all of that. I'm just trying to find you footage of the protests in Israel. I had the stuff queued up. I'm going to see if I can get you the latest stuff here. Here we go. This is tensions are running high. I'm getting stuff here in North America. This is in New Jersey tonight, just moments ago. Let me show you what's going on there. This is very fresh.
Fucking hands off of him! Fucking hands off of him! Get his hands off of the kid! Get the kid! The mic! All right! Get your hands out! Fucking job! Do your fucking job! Fucking keep it right in your fucking mouth! Go that way! Children! Go that way! Children! Go that way! Go that way! Shit! Go that way! Shit!
That's outside this New Jersey synagogue. So, here's the footage that I wanted to show you. Originally, these are the streets in Israel. This is what it looks like. Last night and again today, similar sizes of crowds. Massive. And these are people demanding the resignation of the Israeli government and Benjamin Netenyahu because of the way the war is being handled. As I've said from the very beginning, to go in there heavy-handed like that, it's a trap, in my opinion. If you win, you lose. If you lose, you win. Because if you win the kinetic war, you lose the PR war, the information war. And if you lose that, you've lost. Here's another look from a different angle. This is down to street level.
Tensions rise as protests erupt across Israel, demanding for the return of the remaining hostages and the resignation of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Jerusalem witnessed the onset of a 4-day protest following one of the biggest demonstrations in Tel Aviv on Saturday. where the two different protests against the government united. Tens of thousands flooded the streets in Jerusalem, venting their anger and showing their frustration with the government.
This really shows that the Israeli public woke up. It is clear today, 6 months after the massacre of October 7th, that in order to win, we need new leadership. In order to bring back the hostages, we need new leadership. Israel cannot allow itself the continuation of Netanyahu's government and its coalition. We need to go to new elections.
Over 60 people were arrested on the night of the protest. Police fired water cannons to break up the road blockages by protesters.
It's all people in Israel that want he will stop be prime minister and move and make some of them want election now. I want my father-in-law home now, so which way, it doesn't matter, just bring them back.
As tensions soar, Prime Minister Netanyahu underwent surgery Sunday night, but vowed to return to duty amidst mounting concerns.
I assure you that I will get through this treatment successfully and return to action very quickly, very quickly.
Two fronts united amid uncertainty as the country faces internal and external pressure.
And as I say, we are getting reports from Israel tonight that the protesters are back in full force again in the streets. So this is ensuring that the pressure is kept up on the government. I don't know if a change in government would make any difference or not when it comes to the hostages. But the families, clearly, some of them, think that maybe that's what needs to be done. Republican congressman from Michigan, Tim Walberg, is trying to... he's in damage control mode. He says he's clarifying his comments after saying that Gaza should be like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He was recorded saying that, I guess. He was speaking to constituents last week, and there was a video of the event, and he was captured saying this, and he was asked, why are we spending our money to build a port for them? And he responded, quote, it's Joe Biden, the reason we need to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. I don't think we should. I don't think any of our aid that goes to Israel to support our greatest ally, arguably in the world, to defeat Hamas, Iran, Russia, North Korea, and China, helping Hamas. We shouldn't be spending a dime on humanitarian aid. It should be like Nagasaki and Hiroshima, he added. Get it over quick. The same should be in Ukraine. Defeat Putin quick. Instead of 80% in Ukraine being used for humanitarian purposes, it should be 80 to 100% to wipe out Russia, if that's what we want to do. He goes on as he says, as a child who grew up in the Cold War era, the last thing I'd advocate for would be the use of nuclear weapons, he said, now clarifying his earlier statement. He says, in a shortened clip, I used a metaphor to convey the need for both Israel and Ukraine to win their wars as swiftly as possible without putting American troops in harm's way. My reasoning, he said, was the exact opposite of what is being reported. The quicker these wars end, the fewer innocent lives will be caught in the crossfire. The sooner Hamas and Russia surrender, the easier it will be to move forward. He added, the use of this metaphor, along with the removal of context, distorted my message, but I fully stand by our allies. Let me see here. Here's the audio. Gotta be careful when you're in public office what you say. Here we go.
Yeah, we spend our money to build a port for them. Yeah, it's Joe Biden's reason. We need to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. I don't think we should. I don't think any of our aid that goes to Israel to support our greatest ally, arguably maybe in the world, to defeat Hamas and Iran and Russia. And probably North Korea's in there and China too, with them and helping Hamas. We shouldn't be spending a dime on humanitarian aid. It should be like Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Get it over with.
That's what he said. Walking it back today. That's pretty harsh words. Very harsh words. Okay, what else do we have? Oh, hey, how about the gas prices? Talking about that carbon tax. Let's just throw it into reverse, stomp on it, and do a Dukes of Hazzard 180. Here we go. There's Gas Buddy. So how much is gasoline selling for now with the carbon tax increase today on April 1st, April Fool's Day? Anywhere from, well, about $1.41.6 per liter, all the way up to $1.89.2 in British Columbia. And we have seen the price out there at times pushing $2 a liter. In fact, it was about a week ago it pushed over the $2 mark, and the price can fluctuate that much depending on various market conditions. And with now 3 cents per liter being added to the tax, you're seeing the result at the pump today. But as you know, gas prices go up and they go down like a yo-yo within a certain range all the time. So sometimes these tax increases are masked initially. But a lot of people filled up yesterday and saved a bit at the pumps, and that 3 cents per liter is really just the beginning. It's the tip of the iceberg, really, because the price is going to increase, as I understand it. Ultimately, it's going to increase by 60 cents per liter by the time we get to the end of this carbon tax increase, this cycle between now and 2030. So it's going to be incremental. And all these protesters who are out there, a lot of them, well, I shouldn't say all of them, but a lot of them are vowing to stay and camp until the carbon tax is removed, cut, and not replaced with something different, eliminated. So we'll see how long they actually do hold out in some of these locations. But that's what they've been saying. We will see. Okay, I want to go to the White House here. Pick up this on coming back to the issue in Gaza. Pick up the news conference here. This is the latest on the Biden administration position on
This has been
Gaza.
describing horrific scene at the Shifa hospital where 300 bodies were found. Some were tied up and executed, including doctors, women, and children. Is the White House calling for an independent investigation? And second, do you believe that Israel is in violation of international law? And just on another topic, the Israeli Knesset, the parliament, just passed a law banning international media from working in Israel. You always call Israel as an ally that you shared value with. Is this a value that you share with?
So you asked me two very important questions, and I want to get to them. So as it relates to, and I think you're speaking specifically, at least the reports that we've seen is about Al Jazeera specifically, but it doesn't matter, whichever, right, journalist more broadly, but to those particular report, we've seen the reports, and certainly I'm going to refer to Israel for what they may or may not be considering, but if it is true, a move like this is concerning. We believe in the freedom of the press. It is critical. It is critically important, and the United States supports the critically important work journalists around the world do. And that includes those who are reporting in the conflict in Gaza. So we believe that work is important, the freedom of the press is important, and if those reports are true, it is concerning to us. And to your first question, so look, Hamas should not be operating out of hospitals. We've said that. We've said that over and over again. And putting civilians at risk. That's what we're seeing. And we are concerned by how Hamas appears. They appear to have been able to reconstitute in a hospital so quickly. So we've always also made clear that we continue to support Israel's right to defend itself. But as we've also said, we do not want firefights in a hospital where innocent people, helpless people seeking medical care are caught in a crossfire. We don't want to see that. We have urged Israel to take every step to avoid civilian casualties, and this just points to how challenging Israel's military operation is because Hamas has intentionally embedded themselves into civilian infrastructure, into these hospitals. And so we've been very clear as it relates to the footage, as it relates to the photos and reportings. We have not verified that footage. We're reaching out to the Israeli government to get more information. But obviously, if these reports are true, that is indeed deeply concerning.
The difference between the civilized world and uncivilized world is sticking to international law at the time of war. So regardless, even if these people were Hamas, do you believe that under international law, Israel has the right to execute people, even if Hamas, which you consider a terrorist organization, regardless, so you can't hold them to the same standard as a professional army that often the White House praise as a professional army, they know what they're doing, and even sometimes you said, I wish the U.S. Army behaved like the Israelis.
I hear your question, and I have said it is deeply concerning if it's true. We are reaching out to Israel government to get more information. And that is also important to do. We have to make sure that what we're hearing is verified, right? That the footage is also verified. But we've been very clear. We also have to call out Hamas here. They are operating out of hospitals. That's what they're doing. They're embedding themselves in civilian population. This is what they're doing. And so we have to be also very clear about that. And we have said, we've urged Israel to take every step that they to avoid civilian casualties. So we're going to reach out to the Israeli government, get more information on that. And if that is indeed the case, it is deeply concerning. It is deeply concerning.
So she was making reference to this new law that it looks like Israel is putting in place where they will be allowed, or they will enable themselves to ban media outlets that they deem to be a security risk during this time of war. The media outlet that I guess is already potentially being targeted, there seems to be some concern that it's Al Jazeera, which has been extremely critical of Netanyahu and the government throughout this conflict. That's what they were talking about. That's what happens during times of war. The first casualty of war is what? Truth. And the government would argue that the reason they're probably, banning or looking at banning some of these media outlets, or maybe even only one, is because they're not telling the truth. So it depends on your perspective, I guess. What is truth? Well, I've told you I won't lie to you, but there are different perspectives on things, and sometimes one person's story or experience can actually be different than somebody else's, especially when it comes to something very emotional. But anyway, that's another topic for another night. What we can tell you is that this Turkish airline has been banned from EU skies because of Russian influence in management. Turkish Airlines, Southwind Airlines, has been banned from flying in the European Union. Sanctioned. The sanction imposed because of the Russian trace in the management. The ban has already affected this airline's flight program and plans to transport European tourists to Turkish resorts. This news coming from Avia News. This airline has been banned from taking off and landing at airports in the European Union, as well as transiting the EU. The decision was made on March 28th, and now coming to light through media reports. The ban was preceded by the Finnish regulator's refusal to approve Southwind Airlines' application for Helsinki flights, and the Finnish Transport Authority Traficom concluded that the Turkish airline and its control were linked to the Russian side. So, worried about Russia. No flights for them. And then there was this. A man rammed his vehicle into the gate at the FBI office in Atlanta. Not a wise thing to do. You might get yourself arrested. Here's Fox News report on it.
Fox News alert, this happened just after noon. The FBI saying the driver of a vehicle crashed into the gate of their Atlanta headquarters in Chamblee, Georgia, which is northeast of downtown Atlanta.
Oops.
You can see that vehicle. Looks like it might be an Infiniti SUV. Crashed into that wedge-shaped barricade just past the gate on an FBI Bearcat vehicle there on the scene. There's another one as well. In a statement to Fox, the Bureau says the car rammed into the employee entrance with the driver attempting to enter the facility. He was arrested by DeKalb County Police. Nobody was injured in all of this, but the FBI and police try to determine, Sandra, why in the world the guy did this.
You're left wondering, looking at that and how you think you're going to get past that. For any of us who have seen these FBI offices, we know that they are heavily guarded and gated, and clearly this person decided to go straight through, but was stopped.
Oops. I don't know if that's an oops. I'd say that's got to be intentional. Gotta be. What would possess somebody to do something like that? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out over the next 24 to 48 hours. Vladimir Putin. This coming the day. Okay, so yesterday was what? Transgender Day of Visibility, right? So Biden endorsed it. Easter Sunday. That did not make a lot of conservative Christians happy, I'll tell you that. Over in Russia, a completely different approach. I don't know what your opinion is on this, but here's a post saying that 2 gay club managers in Russia have been arrested and added to the country's list of terrorists. It says here that Russia has recognized the international LGBT movement as extremist and banned it back in November of 2023. Obviously, 2 different worlds. I think that's interesting in itself. Vladimir Putin also wants to take on Xbox and PlayStation. He wants Russian-made video games. This coming after multiple games companies stopped operations in Russia. You know, sanctions and then the war, and a lot of companies ended up leaving because of the the sanctions and the financial system being removed from Russia, from the West. And so Putin has ordered his government to explore the possibility of creating its own game consoles. He wants them to take on, in terms of quality, functionality, Xbox and PlayStation. They're working on the hardware right now, which will include portable devices. And I don't know when they're planning on getting this stuff done. But exactly, but the word is they want something. He wants something maybe that's workable as early as the summer of, like some sort of a report as early as June of this coming summer. So we'll see, but word is that it takes about 10 years to fully develop that kind of product for market. So my guess is they'll get it done faster than that. Especially with AI. I bet you they use AI to accelerate the process. Japan is providing Ukraine with $120 million in non-refundable aid. This coming at a time, of course, when Ukraine is in dire need of support. The funding that is earmarked for Ukraine has been delayed in the United States. That's I believe it's $60 billion military aid package being delayed because Trump and MAGA really have tied, and MAGA supporters have tied the money, approval of the money, to domestic border issues, which we have seen. Okay, let's take another break. We'll come back and resume on the other side of this.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
And I'm back. What else do we have? It seems like every other day there's another mishap in the air involving an airline. Another malfunction, a safety thing. United Airlines Boeing was diverted to Denver due to an engine issue. So there's that. That is concerning. I hope they get that stuff ironed out. Sometimes you have to wonder, is it just because we get more reports after you get one serious incident, and then I'm pretty sure it's because people become focused on an issue, and then you get a sort of like aftershocks, after stories that come to light and get focused on, stories that otherwise would not have been reported on. The Taliban in Afghanistan, they're going to resume stoning women to death. Yeah, they've made this announcement, and that it is resuming publicly stoning women to death. They're going to go back to doing that. This is stuff that was going on, back as, recently as the 1990s, but was suspended. But I guess they're going to resume. And here, I'll show you. Of course, now the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan. Old habits die hard, I guess. There you go. Taliban edict to resume stoning women to death met with horror. Afghan regime's return to public stoning and flogging is because there is no one to hold them accountable for abuses, say human rights activists. You quote here says, you may call it a violation of women's rights when we publicly stone or flog them for committing adultery because they conflict with your democratic principles. This coming from the Taliban's supreme leader. He says, I represent Allah and you represent Satan. Wow. There's truth for you. That's unsettling to say the least. So it's been an event-filled Monday, Easter Monday, April 1st, April Fool's Day. Axe the Tax Protest Day. Quite a day. A lot of protesters still out there, I guess, tonight. We'll see how many are there tomorrow. We'll continue to follow things over the course of the week. Not a bad turnout in a lot of places. I really didn't know what to expect. Just wasn't sure, and from everything we've seen, it was all peaceful everywhere. Well, was it peaceful? In Ottawa, there were some counter-protesters at some high-pitched whistles, noisemakers, and I guess they were assaulting people by putting them right up to their ears. So there was that going on. But overall, I think that the whole thing was pretty peaceful. That being said, these pro-Palestinian protests continue. Now we have the Axe the Tax protests continuing, and I know that the goal is to use today as the foundation and then build on that to create a wave with more and more people joining the protests through the week and then getting to a much bigger number on weekends, and then maybe even beyond that. Now, will these protests have the staying power? I don't know. We'll just have to watch and see what happens. How passionate are people about this? Now I am going to wrap things up for the evening, but I will be back tomorrow night. Just a reminder that if you like what we do here, we really do need your help, and thank you again to those of you who have donated. And I'm going to send out a few email messages this week to some people who are kind of on our mailing list saying thank you for the various types of support that we do receive from people. You can support the channel by donating at freedomreporters.com, and anybody who donates $60 or more, I will send you. That's the SS t-shirt. We need these ones. A Maverick News shirt, $60 or more, and I'll send you one of these for a donation at no extra cost, of course, because I'll just send it to you as a thank you. And I'll send you one of these SST Car Show shirts too. These ones are really nice. They have this metallic, sparkly, embroidered logo on them. And as an added bonus, I do have some of these. I got a few more of these Batmobiles, different types of Batmobiles. I will randomly select one, whether it's the 60s version or the Batman Forever one or the animated series one or whatever. It'll be a luck of the draw for you, but tell me what size of shirt you want. You can have it in any color you want as long as it's black, of course. And I'll send you a bonus Hot Wheels if you donate tonight. So that would be my pleasure to do that. Now, any donation of $30 or more, and I can send you a t-shirt, a Maverick News t-shirt. Be happy to do that as well. You can also donate at maverickdonations.com. That's the Give, Send, Go. And you can always donate using the Rumble Rants. I don't always get a chance to check the chat over on Rumble, so I'm sorry about that, but I try to keep on top, and it doesn't feed through the system here, so I do apologize. But I will be back, folks, tomorrow night, probably at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tuesday, trying to line up a special guest for tomorrow night for an interview. I won't name the person because it's not absolutely confirmed, but it should be a great interview. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, maybe it will happen later in the week. In fact, I've got a couple of really good guests that I'm looking forward to having on the program, hopefully this week. And then the next week, I'm going on special assignment to do a little bit of work in the field far away, so the show may be disrupted somewhat next week. Just a heads up on that, which is unusual because we're usually here every single night. But I am working on something, so we'll see what happens next week. However, as I say, I will be back at 6 p.m. tomorrow night here on the Maverick News Channel, where we have the antivirus programs for your mind. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out here tonight. Love y'all. Catch you on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.